Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are across the globe. We have a great lineup today to talk about harnessing the power of AI to boost online sales. I don't need to tell you about AI and how it's trending across all social channels, including LinkedIn. In fact, about an hour ago, before I jumped on this webinar, Wall Street Journal just announced that OpenAI is actually valued at $90 billion, up from 29 billion earlier this year. So some really exciting things happening. But before we jump in to our panelists, a couple of housekeeping items that we'll walk through. All lines are on mute for a better listening experience. The presentation is being recorded for later playback and sharing. Use the question box during the session. We have a few questions that we're going to walk through, but would love to hear from you in terms of what you're interested in hearing from our panelists. And feedback forms will be provided at the end of the event. We like to have multiple different webinars throughout the year. So if there's something that we touched on today that you'd like to learn more about, or if there are follow-ups that you want to hear from the speakers or from somebody at Verifone, please provide that in the feedback forms. So with no further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists here on our webinar here today. So first we have Abby Hehemann, who is Director of Product Marketing at GetResponse. Hello, Abby, and welcome. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Hey there, thanks so much for having me. So yes, I am Abby Hehemann. I am representing GetResponse, which is simply a easy to use platform to send emails and grow your email list and automate engagement. But really what I'm spending most of my time doing is thinking about how can we be really strategic with our position in the market? How can we be more competitive and stand out against our competitors in the space and be more intentional with our messaging, but also how we can help marketers and revenue leaders of really any size of organization to be more effective, drive more sales and revenue from the particular channel with an emphasis on email. And we've been digging very deep into embedding generative AI in particular into our products right now to really start saving our customers time and doing what we can. And then in particular, I'm excited to talk more today about this impact on our e-commerce customers and where they're starting to see success and driving more of their conversions through email and on the web as well. So looking forward to the convo today.
Terrific. Thank you very much for joining us.
And I forgot to mention what you also said, Mike. I'm in Arkansas in Poland, so we have quite an international crew, it sounds like today. So.
Thank you very much. And next we have Kasim Aslam, who, if you remember him from our June Commerce event, he was a panelist then, and we have him back now, so great to have him back. He is founder and CEO of Solutions 8. So Kasim, please tell us about yourself.
I started the best Google Ads agency on the planet. I'm the co-host of one of the best marketing podcasts in the world, and I'm exceedingly humble. Just kidding. I run traffic for about 200 organizations and have $100 million in ad spend under management. And so really the only thing I have on anybody else is just access to more data. And that has leaned very heavily into AI in the last couple of years, as everybody knows and can imagine. So I'm super excited to have this conversation. And really interested to see where it goes and hear from the other panelists, and appreciate you including me. I am in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Thank you, Kasim. Glad to have you. And next is Dawn Harpster, Senior Conversation Designer and Freelancer from Nebraska, just south of me here in Minnesota. Welcome, Dawn. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, I'm about 6 hours away from you if you drive, an hour and a half if you fly. I'm currently a consultant and user advocate, and my jam is conversation design and user behavior. I'm super excited about what AI is doing to the conversation design space, both voice and digital, and I love how it's bringing flexibility and customization to user conversations, and I love helping businesses leverage that to increase their sales and save money and talk time.
Terrific, and thank you very much for joining us. And I'll also introduce myself here, but I'm Mike Nicholas. I'm head of digital sales for the Americas for Verifone, and this webinar is brought to you by Verifone, formerly 2Checkout. And we try to bring different webinars like this throughout the year. So as I mentioned in my earlier introduction, please provide us feedback, what you liked about today, what you want to hear more about today. about the panelists, about us here at Verifone. We're always looking for new, fresh ideas. Or if you're on and you want to be a panelist, would love for you to reach out to us as well. So thank you very much for joining us. Before we jump in, I want to give you my experience with AI, and actually Kasim was the one that planted the seed back in June when I had the opportunity to introduce him. But the first thing that I typed into ChatGPT, it was the platform that he had suggested I get started with, was the best burger in northern Minnesota. So from there, it was best burger to how to tell my wife I'm leaving to go for a run, which if you haven't done, it's kind of fun. You know, I feel like my relationship with my wife has even gotten better because of ChatGPT, but now doing some strategic things around the business. Things like asking what are outreach cadences that we can use when we're trying to engage a prospect, or what are things that we should be doing to better support our clients from a customer success management perspective. But then also thinking creatively, and Kasim, you planted this seed of what are things that CEOs are Googling today that have to do with payments. Verifone most certainly is payments, but things like that. So all the way from what burger I was going to have on a Tuesday night back in June to today, thinking more strategically. So I'm very excited to be your host today. I'm very excited to learn more from our panelists today, and I'm excited to see some questions flow in as well. The more questions that we have, the better the topics are going to be. So the 4 things that we're going to focus on is growth. There isn't a company that I bumped into in my 20 years of sales that does not want to grow. So we most certainly are going to focus on that today and how AI plays into that. Also want to talk about strategies. How is AI impacting your day-to-day strategy, your month-to-month strategy, and your annual strategy, and how are you forward thinking? And of course, there's some challenges there too. AI is new to me as of June, and maybe it's new as of others as of today. Maybe this is the first time you're diving in, and maybe your first question will be like mine, best burger in northern Minnesota. But my guess is there are some challenges that you're thinking about as you approach AI. And then what's trending? It's constantly changing. If you go on LinkedIn today, 35-40% of those posts are about AI. But what is trending? What matters? And we're going to rely on our panelists today to be able to tell us what those things are. So our first question for today is, how can AI technologies be effectively integrated into an e-commerce business model to enhance the overall customer experience and drive sales? And Dawn, if you could please kick us off.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this one's kind of low hanging fruit from my perspective. Where I'm seeing AI being implemented, especially in conversations with contact center agents, popping in knowledge base or popping in product suggestions, which it doesn't seem very new or revolutionary, but it's a lot more efficient and a lot quicker. The response time is much faster now with the large language models. And that definitely drives sales, right? You're saving talk time in some instances, and you're providing product references that your customers are just going to love.
Thank you very much. And Kasim, anything to add to that?
I would just caution organizations against the idea that AI is going to take over, at least in the short term, core tasks. What I'm seeing is people say like, "Oh, AI can do blog writing. Great, I'm going to have ChatGPT write my blog. Oh, this blog is garbage. ChatGPT doesn't work." And
Mhm.
it's a flawed model to think that it's a replacement, it's a supplement. So the paradigm that we should be assuming in the short term is AI enabled work, AI enabled assembly line, AI enabled insert whatever it is here. AI is going to supplement staff members, supplement tasks, supplement projects. But to think that it's just like the easy button, it's like, oh, AI does it. No, it doesn't. It doesn't, and it can't, and it will someday for sure. And that's really exciting to talk about and think about and dream about. But if you think for a moment that you're just going to go make the AI do it, uh, you're setting yourself up for failure. So think from the perspective and the paradigm of AI enablement, and that's going to really help as far as integrating into your ecom business model, whatever the task is.
I'm going to piggyback on that. Sorry, I got to jump in here. Everybody right now, the AI is the hammer, right? And everything's a nail. And that seems to be the scattershot approach that a lot of companies are taking. But, to your point, Kasim, used strategically and in the right places, it definitely can bring value now. We are still a couple years away from being what the press initially touted it as, right? It's a tool like any other. And we're still in the infancy and we're still learning how to use this hammer in the right way.
Yeah, I agree. It's a tool. That's really what all of us are trying to really communicate across our teams and to our customers. This is a tool. It's not a magic bullet. I think, as you already mentioned, Dawn, there is low-hanging fruit, like in terms of, saving time with, online conversations that are happening with agents on a website, right? Like no more manual searching the knowledge base to find an answer. Like that's just, now no longer an effective use of time. Your agents can be more effective and more strategic in the recommendations. But also, I think it's going to become table stakes for e-commerce businesses to have personalized shopping experiences when you visit, in particular when you return to a web page. I think soon it will, really be able to see the kind of disparity or the difference in visiting a website that has a personalized experience when you are visiting and then revisiting that page in particular, and those that don't. And I think those that do are simply going to see an increase in their sales, because we know that the relevancy and personalization is really what drives us to, continue to return. Netflix and other folks who get better and better at recommending things that they think we're going to like, just increases our stickiness and our loyalty, with the folks that do it right. So I think that's really what I would definitely recommend for any e-commerce business to be considering. How can I better personalize the experience of folks who are visiting my website?
I really
Yeah.
love what Abby just said about. Oh, I'm sorry, Don. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Kasim.
I just want to double click, Abby. You said it twice, and it's a brilliant example of the right type of implementation for a tool like AI. You said that AI is applicable for website visitors, especially people who are coming back. And so here you are from a strategic perspective deciding when somebody's a new visitor, they need this experience. When somebody's a return visitor, they need this experience. And this is the line of demarcation or the delineation with which I'm going to use the AI-driven tool. And that's the way to think about AI. Like if this, then that. And doing so allows you to get hyper-focused and hyper-segmented. And if you can niche down on what it is you're trying to do with AI, it's a miracle. And everything everybody says about it is true. Like it's an unbelievable miracle. Once you've said, hey, AI, I need you to do this very specific thing in this very specific way for this very specific person in this very specific instance. But that's tedious and tasking. We don't want to do that. And instead, people are like, broad brush, AI, talk to my customers. Well, no, that's horrible and nobody wants that experience. But I just wanted to applaud Abby the way you approach that. It's like, in this instance, AI is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're seeing, as this evolved, the white glove treatment that was previously reserved to the high rollers, right, the big spenders, is now sort of being spread out to, people who aren't high spenders, and that customization and personalization is really going to be a differentiator in any sales environment.
Yeah, definitely.
And definitely agree with all of your points. And one thing that I'll mention that kind of, Kasim, you tapped on it just a little bit here. I've been in sales for 20 years, and 20 years ago it was the call center is going to take away my job, or this automated call center is going to take away my job, and then it was the self-serve e-commerce channel is going to take away the salesperson's job, and AI now is the new thing. Well, it's still the human touch that matters at the end of the day. And I'm going to pull one word out of this question here, and that's enhance. How do we enhance the overall experience with AI? And I think that's kind of what we're all saying, right? We're not going away. Us four aren't going away, the multiple people on this channel, but how do we enhance the customer's experience with AI? With AI is I think, really where this webinar will probably touch on that a few different times, but nobody's here to take our job. It's here to enhance the customer experience.
Totally.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next question. Great discussion. So the next question is, how has AI impacted online sales in your experience? And what strategies and solutions did you see work? And what specific results have you noticed? So a complex question that we can unpack a little bit here. But let's start with Abby.
Sure. Yeah. And, I'm just going to continue the kind of thread there about recommending, personalized products in an e-commerce scenario with a use case that we have, right? So we have, on board with us a men's fashion brand. And so they wanted to implement and use AI to do what I mentioned, right? Personalizing the recommendations that they make, but not just on kind of this, baseline approach of like, here are our top sellers, or here are, the most recent viewed products by X number of, visitors, but actually customize based on the, data that we now have collected about this returning visitor, right? This person that we now have stored this data for all of the various things that they've actually viewed and looked at or purchased. and then compare their data and behavior with others similar to them and what they have been purchased. I mean, so much of what this AI is just taking good, big amounts of data, like we've heard about having, what a privilege that is to have access to a lot of data because it gives you information. And then AI is simply the tool to help be able to take action on all of that data. You already had all of that sales data anyways, all about, what everybody was viewing and purchasing and looking at, but you couldn't really crunch the numbers right to start making really proactive recommendations in real time with various folks who will visit your website. And so now there's like AI tools, thankfully there's SaaS products now that exist that, I can, say I'm of course representing, that are then just embedding this tool. So it's, easier for you to use it. So you don't need your own developer to actually, custom code some of these, open sourced AI solutions to implement it on your website. It's now being embedded into SaaS solutions that you can just kind of, buy and then more easily implement and get it on your own website. So, it's just like I mentioned, you will sell more. There's like a 10% increase in this men's fashion example of, sales conversions after they are showing a recommended product. And then the other part is to make sure then you're kind of continuing that thread in the other channels in which you market your e-commerce products. So of course your website is one, but how do you keep following up? Well, definitely with an email, right? You're always reminding folks about what they did or didn't purchase or what's new in your store. So definitely to keep that thread going in the email as well with the same type of recommended products based on all of this myriad of behavior. So it's really just, again, using a new tool that's now accessible to you. And, there's things like ChatGPT and generative AI, which creates things for you. But this is a use case of just using data effectively through a tool that AI facilitates to show the right people the right products. And now that's not really just words we say, like the right products to the right people. Those were all words before. But now, because there's an AI solution that actually crunches the data and makes those recommendations, you can implement it. And so that's like the big use case that's now thankfully possible, and thankfully it's implemented now into SaaS products that you can more easily acquire and make your own.
Yes. And Kasim, anything to add?
I have a favorite analogy. It's a little obnoxious, but I'm gonna lob it out there, and then y'all can tell me if it's applicable. Digital marketing used to be like driving a Formula One race car. You're going fast, right? You're going 250 kilometers down the road and you're driving. So you're holding the wheel and you're shifting and you're making the adjustments and like micro decisions moment by moment. You're in control. And that's true for everything, from media buying, content creation, SEO, web funnel, CRO, whatever. Doesn't matter. Whatever you're doing, you own that process. The minute you begin using AI, it's now interstellar space travel at the speed of light. You don't get to drive the spaceship. Like you'll crash and we'll all die. So instead, your job is to serve the machine, which is a weird thing to say, right? That's very Orwellian in a whole bunch of ways, and it's heralds the oncoming onslaught of Skynet. But that's the paradigm that we should assume. So as far as the impacts that it's having, specific impacts, because I want to speak to the question, impacted online sales in your experience, what strategies and solutions did you see work, and what specific results have you noticed? People that try to drive crash. And that's especially in my world with media buying. People are trying to drive the AI and you just cannot. And it's interesting because we went from a situation to where my team would be making, depending on the ad spend, if you're spending 6 figures or more a month, my team was making a couple of dozen changes in your account every day. You could go into Google Change History and you'd see dozens of changes every single day. I've got accounts that haven't been touched in 7 months. Like, why are you paying me money? What am I doing that you're gonna not? But what people begin to realize is, okay, I'm not making changes to the account, but I'm serving the AI-driven mechanism by doing things like feed optimization, CRO, spend bid budget management, etc. But all the stuff that I used to do, and that's massive. It's huge. The implications are staggering. And to the point you made prior to, Michael, nobody's coming to take our jobs, but our jobs are changing. And that for me has been the biggest result from the inclusion of AI is an increase in efficiency. I love what Abby said about these used to just be words, because it's true. It used to kind of be lip service and we'd say like, oh, someday, but no, it really is. Lord Google knows it has 72 million demographic and psychographic profiling factors. And so it knows, I know for a fact that you're going to buy blue light blocking glasses in about 48 hours because you just read this article, got this email, received this text message, and did this search. And I know based off of my knowledge of path to purchase that people like you are going to buy. And so now, like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Who's going to get that advertising pop? And it's the person that relies most on the AI, not the person who's trying to crowbar into specific placement, specific device, specific date, specific time. So all those micro optimizations. And this sucks for me because I'm the left brain nerd that likes those things. You have to take, it's going to favor the creatives. So, left brain want to dive into the weeds, you're going to go learn your lesson real quick. But if you're willing to kind of, let go and then course correct as is necessary, that's where I think success will be found.
Cool.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, piggybacking on what you both said, Abby and Kasim. I've always advocated from a customer perspective, that the back end system should do the heavy lifting, not the customer. And this is definitely a way that's going to allow the back end to do some more heavy lifting. And exactly what you said, Kasim, you've got all these data points and all these marketing materials that have gone out, and you're leveraging all of that information to sort of, guide the user, or at least understand where the user is going to go based on previous behavior, which we all want to do, right? And AI just makes that easier and more efficient. And the other thing it does is, in interactions, it's able to cut some steps out. So where the conversations that customers used to have with systems were always very linear, now with the large language models and Chat GPT, you can compress those down. They don't have to go through all those awkward steps. It's streamlining the conversations.
I like that point a lot, the way that you phrase that. It's able to cut steps out. And it's not as though the steps aren't taking place. They're taking place in a black box that we can't see. And that's an important thing to acknowledge too, because I think when people see those steps being skipped, they almost get scared. And then they try to like artificially inject them. They're like, wait, you can't buy yet. You have to do these 17 things first.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good note.
Yeah, I mean, I compare it to, my background's in television, right? Before I went into technology, I was in television, and I liken it to the old analog editing systems where, you edited on tape, actual tape, and you couldn't do nonlinear. And when nonlinear editing came onto the scene, it was a game changer for cinema, for television, everything. It gave you more flexibility, it gave more visually interesting storylines. And this is, to my mind, it's the same thing. It's nonlinear. It's, whereas the conversation used to be very bulky and linear, now it's faster. It's like you've waxed the surfboard.
Dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to add one more thing. And when I read the question, I thought of it, but what solutions did I see work? And I'm not sure if you're like me and you love your cable company, but I'm being as sarcastic as I possibly can here. But every year I go into negotiations with my cable company because they give you the 1 year, the 18-month with free HBO or free channels or a discounted internet. So every year I go into that same process. So about a month ago, I went into that process, but I was talking to the virtual assistant chatbot. And last year it was a person I was talking to. And the chatbot was able to get me to the point where I was comfortable with my renewal terms. All I had to do was, confirm my credit card number over the phone. And it was a person that did that from a payments perspective. But it was the chatbot that more or less managed the process this year. So that was something that I saw work. Much better experience for me as opposed to 36 minutes on the phone. I'm already unhappy. This is live, so I'll say I was unhappy. But I'm unhappy. But they get on. I'm already negotiated with my chatbot at that point. So unique experience that I recently had that was most certainly AI driven.
Well, and definitely something that, when I advocate for chatbots, it's simple and repetitive, right? How many of these conversations every day did the live agents have with people that the bot can now do and save all this talk time and save you the hold time? It's no brainer.
I just did a podcast with Call Tracking Metrics. I'm not an affiliate, but they've got, I didn't know this because I've been a user for years, but they have sentiment analysis.
Yeah.
This is a
Yes.
good example of where like you still have a human who takes the call, does the thing, but then CTM can be like, oh, someone got mad. And now just that alone, like what infrastructure would be necessary in order to do that through human intervention? It's untenable for most businesses, but now a small business with 3 call agents can say like, Jerry's really screwing things up and he's not renewing. We now know why his numbers are down via sentiment analysis. It's a lead indicator before you get to sales or whatever. So things like that, AI enabled services, to go all the way back to the original point, I think those are the things that are going to work in the short term.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Let's move on to the next question. So everyone's favorite, The next question is challenges. What challenges have you identified in implementing AI solutions for e-commerce, and how were they overcome? Or if you're dealing with those questions or those challenges today, would love for you to share those things as well, and have a good discussion here on this. And let's start with Kasim on this question.
You should have started with me, Michael, because I'm the world's greatest failure, and I fail at everything twice. We with Google, we were the Performance Max agency. At the risk of sounding arrogant, we cracked the code on Performance Max before anybody else. We taught the world how to use Performance Max, which is Google's AI-driven marketing mechanism for anybody who doesn't know. Here's what's interesting about that: is Performance Max rolls out in November 2019. It's garbage. It's like laughable. Google takes it back into the lab, redistributes late 2021, early 2022, I don't remember. And then all of a sudden, it was a miracle. It was like you give Google your audience ish, your offer ish, and it just did it. It built the ads, found the targeting, decided what web page people went to. It was an unbelievable miracle. And so we start telling everybody. That was my talk for 18 months. I toured the world with a Performance Max pitch. Here's what's really funny. Performance Max stopped working because when we were using it and it worked, it was blue ocean. Nobody else was using it. So I was benefiting from a hierarchical structure upon which there was nobody else competing. It's easy to shoot to the top. So what I assumed was, oh, AI works, where instead it was nobody else is here. The minute we reached critical mass and the world tipped towards using Performance Max, now you have what we would have in any economic ecosystem where there's an influx in competition, which is massive inefficiencies. And I've got 200 clients that are all moving out of Performance Max, and we're going back to standard shopping and DSA and traditional search and all these traditional campaign types. And everybody that's ever subscribed to me on YouTube is pissed because they're like, dude, you told me to use Performance Max. And that's what's interesting is it worked until it didn't. And so what's going to be frustrating about all of these AI tools is there's something to be said for the novelty. Like you mentioned, Michael, I had this chat with my cable company, and it went really well. I wonder if 36 months from now, when the whole world has deployed AI chat, if you're going to be as tickled. Do you know what I mean? So like the question becomes, why is this working? And where am I within the Overton window? And what are the shifts going to look like? Because it's something like self-imposed inflation. As all my competitors, strategic partners, and customers get acclimated to this new ecosystem, that ecosystem changes itself, and there's like an innate evolution to it. And so the thing that sucks about AI is implementation costs are high, changes to processes are difficult, getting people onboarded, both internal and your customers. User adoption is damn near impossible in some instances. And here you are having lugged this mountain, this boulder up the mountain, and there's no guarantee that it sticks. So what's the saying? Pioneers get murdered, settlers prosper. We're all AI pioneers right now. So go use the AI because it's $1 trillion lever and it can make you a ton of money in short order. But like all other, brand new pieces of technology, expect it to break early and often, and just be really careful about being over reliant. I've got 1 foot on the dock, 1 foot on the boat, and I'm not ready to let go and lean in either direction just yet. And I don't think anybody should be.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Yeah. And what we see with, our customers and our tools and, even ourselves looking to embed different pieces into our own architecture is, as we have mentioned, data is what's really feeding this. And a lot of people have really messy data. The data quality is not great. It's not structured in whatever format is required for whatever tool or source you're looking to actually embed and start feeding this data in. That's a huge blocker with, I think, a ton of technological projects with organizations. Is just like the data's a mess and it's not accessible. And with that data is the privacy concerns, I think, and that's a really good pause. I think that's a really smart place for companies to really be super keeping their foot on, the dock before they go all in and start feeding these AI tools with a ton of super sensitive customer data. Like you need to be super cognizant of where you're located, like what laws and regulations you're going to be, required to adhere to before you just start willy-nilly feeding in a bunch of your really sensitive customer or your own, kind of privacy protected data into these open source tools because they can do cool things and you could get this short-term win, right? So I think that's something that's a huge challenge. I think you can overcome it, but I think that's by taking small pieces. It's not by trying to, eat the entire pie in one go. You need to kind of be super specific on one scenario that you're looking to optimize. I think probably the chatbots and like solving customer inquiries on websites is probably a safer, quicker win for a lot of us because you don't have to worry with some of the sensitive data. You can decide what angles you want that chatbot to go before you feel comfortable. But then to really, reap these big rewards, we all want this magic AI, like we've talked about, to do all these magical sales miracles. And you need a lot of really good data to do that. But your data needs to be in good shape, needs to be accessible, and you need to be super, super sure that you're not going to get, pinged or sued with the ways in which you're then giving potentially an open source solution, very sensitive data.
Right. And, the elephant in the room that we haven't mentioned is hallucinations, right? Chat GPT hallucinates. It was one of the things when I was messing with it early on and the interesting things it would hallucinate with. And even on a demo with somebody from OpenAI, it hallucinated during a demonstration, which I thought, ooh, that's awkward. I'm glad I'm not him right now. But, the way, and you're talking, Abby, exactly about security, so you've got hallucinations and security, which are two big concerns. And so, I'm finding a lot of companies are strategically implementing it on the back end so that, it's doing call summarization with call center agents, right? Where there's a human side kind of overseeing it. And, oh yeah, that's it. Click. Oh no, that's not it. It's this. And I think we still need to have those guardrails in place to prevent security breaches and hallucinations. And my son has a quote, but it's funny, but I don't want to say it here. But it's all great until ChatGPT tells you to kill your mom and move to Spain. And it's just something that we all need to be aware of. And those of us that have used it understand that risk and are doing their best to mitigate it.
Yeah. And I'm so sorry to interrupt you, Michael. I just wanted to ask a quick question to the panelists on the thoughts also about employee resistance. I think also we probably, as leaders or folks who are looking to kind of like pioneer in our own organizations, potentially as you start to, if you don't position this correctly in your rollout with your organization, it could be this fear that everyone has that it's going to take my job. And so you could see kind of like internal resistance of folks not actually being able to help you implement the project. You need probably, your frontline folks, whether it's your customer support team or some of your data engineers, to actually facilitate this move. But I think definitely resistance to folks who are scared of AI or don't understand it or are just like generally against it could also be a potential challenge that I think folks would see. But I'm curious what y'all think.
Yeah, culture change is always a hard thing, right? That's the hardest thing in any business is changing the culture. And this is definitely, it's a mindset change and it's to a point, a culture change. And honestly, I had feelings. I mean, when I first started playing around with it and I saw what it could do, I actually told my boss, I'm like, this could take all of our jobs. Oh, no, it can't. And it was funny because a month later, we're on a meeting and he says, this could take all of our jobs. I'm like, where did I hear that before? Fairly recently, because I could see the potential. I could see where it could go. But again, I think, Kasim, you mentioned that it's the mindset, right? You either shift and adapt or you're dead by the road and you're not going anywhere. And I think we're all sort of, like I said, in that no man's land where we're all trying to decide how this is going to work and where we fit into this, and where this fits into the work cycle.
I think the jobs that this takes are the people that don't pay attention to how AI impacts their job. Your job is safe for as long as you're willing to use AI in order to further increase your efficacy. And sadly, I would anticipate that being about 10%. There's a book written called The Influentials, and it talks about the human propensity to ignore new developments and how 10% of the people, generally speaking, are the ones that are on the vanguard of that. And they're at the forefront. They're like, oh, hey, look at this thing. And then 90% slowly trudge along and follow. So if you're among the 10%, and you whatever, graphic designer, video editor, SEO, it doesn't matter. I'm using digital marketing examples, but data analyst. If you're one of the people that says, look at how this makes my job better, faster, more efficient, and I'm the employer, I keep you. And so that's the thing that I think is really worth meditating on, I'm going to get a little dark here. OpenAI did the largest, most expensive study of universal basic income ever conducted. The company responsible for ChatGPT, the most visible AI solution in existence, spent more money than any entity has ever spent, including governments, studying universal basic income. There's a very strong reason for that. And there's a bunch of anything that exists within an airlock is doomed. So if your job happens within, the airlock, by the way, is where you have a tangible change from the assembly line to the factory, or from the factory to the truck, or from the truck to the showroom. Anything that happens within the airlock, meaning the computer can see the whole thing from start to finish on a long enough timeline, is doomed. But that's any task. And so what we want to do is delineate between task and job. And if you can't delineate between task and job, by the way, your job is now gone. But this isn't the first time. You think about everybody that ever lost a job to an assembly line, which happened. We used to have artisans, right? You go far enough back and every horseshoe was handcrafted by a human who really needed to know how to do that. And now, and it was 4 horseshoes a day or whatever it was, and they were punching them out and they were expensive. And now I can get 40 horseshoes a minute from this little machine being run out of a manufacturing plant that's 100,000 square feet, run by one person, one human. So just don't be the person stamping horseshoes, be the person who figures out how to run the factory. I think that there's a lot of just practical realities that are worth facing, and sadly, it'll be the most at risk are the most at risk, if that makes any sense. I don't mean to be redundant, and I'll try to say that more clearly. The people who have the most to lose tend to be the ones in positions that are most easily commoditized. So it's, call center agents, data analysts, people doing transcription, right? It's the lower, quote unquote, lower tier jobs. It's the 21st century equivalent of breaking bricks on the side of the road. It used to be you could raise a family of 4 breaking bricks on the side of the road. You can't anymore because there are machines that'll break bricks. Same thing here. Those people didn't die. I don't think we're looking at a, Steinbeck-esque dystopian future where people roaming the fields of California trying to work for food per se. But what's interesting about it is it goes from impacting farmers to impacting graphic designers. And from a societal perspective, we're not used to that. We're not used to white collar jobs being threatened.
Mm-hmm.
And so where blue collar types are a little bit better, I think, at being more anti-fragile, it's going to be interesting to see this new demographic deal with sweeping changes like this. And the best way to deal with it isn't to hide from AI or fight AI. It's to get behind it like a sword and a shield and be like,
Yeah.
I know how to use this. I hope that wasn't too dark, too much of a departure.
I think the analogy was a good one and something you mentioned, Abby. And I think that this could, this webinar is on how to boost online sales. I think we've touched on a few of those things, but really it's a broader
Thank you for bringing us back to the center, Michael. I'm sorry.
But I bring that up for a couple different reasons. One, you had said the adoption of employees. And I think that we see, how do we boost online sales as a topic today? And that's how we're thinking about AI. But as a team, my team had a discussion, a brainstorm around AI. And by the end of that, CSMs on my team were asking AI, what are C-level folks searching for in a QBR, in a quarterly business review? What should we be thinking about when we're presenting the quarterly results? What are the things that are happening in the payment industry today? So I think that there's different ways that is an easier adoption as opposed to a forced, you might lose your job type of a thing, but how do you enhance the way that you do your job, or how do you improve on your job, or what are the things that the CEOs or the CFOs or the people that we're targeting, or maybe it's the SDRs that we want to talk to, what are they Googling, or what are they chat GBT? And I'm not sure if the word's Google at that point. What are they searching? What are the things that the topics that matter to them? And I think that's an easier way to get people on board as opposed to call it the scare tactic of it might take your job. So just a thought there.
Yeah, totally. It's all about your positioning as you roll it out.
And this 40 minutes has gone by so quick, and AI is incredibly fun to talk about, and there's a lot of things. We have 20 minutes left, and I just want to encourage the folks that have joined. I've seen a lot pop in to send questions, just so we can address those questions. We do have one question here that actually just got sent in, so I will read it out. It said, we have a question from Amir. So Amir, thank you for the question. And the question is, what actual AI solution did you try recently that you got excited about? So let's start with Dawn, and then Abby, and then Kasim.
Actually, yeah, there's a company, I don't know if I should drop the name or not, but they have an AI solution it's all back end stuff, right? It's document management, it's project management, and they have this tool that just blew my socks off. I saw it, I tried it. It's revolutionary, and it's a way that is really going to save a lot of time on the back end. Again, Kasim, I'm thinking about the sword and shield metaphor that you just gave, because I thought, wow, this is something that I hadn't thought of. I wish I had thought of it. And it's a difference maker and it's a time saver. And I could see a lot of companies adopting this tool to really streamline project management. I mean, it was crazy how cool this thing was.
Feel free to drop the name. I know we're live here,
It's
and
Notion. Notion is the company. Notion is the company, and you can get a free demo of this. And I thought it was the coolest thing I've seen in a really, really long time.
Nice. Yeah, our marketing team, in particular, our content marketing team and SEO team, has really been leaning into this tool called Midjourney. It's basically AI generated images, and it's really like scaling so much so quickly about the kind of way that our teams can create these custom, very specific images that will match the different topics that we're writing about or looking to focus on as well. So it's a time saver. It's really, huge in terms of like some conversion optimization tactics as well. So it's just a big time saver for our team. Things that used to take a ton of time, and were very kind of like arduous tasks, was to find the right images that will go with very specific themes and topics for a variety of topics we're looking to optimize for on our SEO focused blog articles or other pieces of content. So definitely I've seen my team talk a lot about Midjourney as well, and I just can see it's big time saver, and it's also a motivator. It's something that's getting the team excited to actually use and try new tools, because they're actually seeing improvements both in their efficiency and then the results that they're seeing as well. So that's the tool that's making the rounds in my world right now.
I put my sons in front of Midjourney, and they had the most fun because you're like,
Yeah,
show me
yeah,
a dog climbing a ladder against the Adirondack Mountains wearing a swimming suit or whatever, and it's like, here it is, and my
yeah,
6 and 8-year-old were just blown away.
yeah,
You
yeah.
just spend hours.
That is
Uh,
more fun than our blog post professional graphics for sure.
but it's cool because it also gets the creative juices flowing. If you can just use
True,
it that way.
true, true.
The one I learned about yesterday, this comes from a member of my mastermind, but he mentioned Claude.ai. He's using it to review legal documents. So he'll upload a legal document and then ask the AI assistant about the legal, like, what are the inconsistencies? What are the risks? What I need to be aware of? And you think about the implications of that if you're an attorney. It's like, I don't need to spend the $750 an hour I pay my lawyer. I will ultimately, but my first layer of defense against Sword and Shield is Claude.ai, and then I can come to the lawyer when I'm ready to actually paper up. So it's a pretty cool little tool.
That's cool.
Well,
Mike, what about you?
The
What about
questions are
you? You didn't
rolling.
answer the question.
Myself?
Yeah.
So I would say I actually messaged Kasim after we discussed this in June, and I'm still on ChatGPT, and I ask it everything and anything. If I'm hungry for pizza, I ask for pizza. If I'm asking, how do we come up with an SDR strategy? How do we grow ecom? How do we do these different things? I see it as a consultant that thinks outside of the box, if you will, on different strategies we're trying to implement, but also things. And I mentioned this one, but things like QBRs. How do we improve our QBR process? What are the things that we should be talking about? What are the things trending in payments today that people care about? So I'm still on ChatGPT. I'm 4 months into this, and I would say as a beginner, as a rookie, which I consider myself a rookie, I'll let you know when I advance. But I think that is the starting point for just what I'm using it for today, just the back and forth. There's different exciting tools out there. I saw one, it was actually posted on LinkedIn where I tend to get my business news, if you will, but it was talking about a AI, and I don't know the company name, but he had said, I have not had a professional shot for my LinkedIn page for 7 years. So he went into some AI tool and took his picture from 7 years ago, updated his picture today, and now it's that picture today. And I can send that out after, but I can't remember what it is, but I know the friend that posted, so I'm happy to share those. But again, still a rookie. I think a great starting point was where Kasim directed me back in June.
Nice.
So let's go to question 4, and then there are 3 additional questions. So if we could advance to slide or question 4 here. So how do you foresee the role of AI evolving in online sales over the next few years, and what emerging trends should businesses watch out for? And let's start with Dawn.
I think this is an Abby question. I mean,
Abby?
I'm not really
Okay.
involved in sales. I mean,
Okay, I
I,
got you, Don. I got you, Don. Yeah. It's definitely just like kind of across the entire customer journey is really where I think like we're kind of picking, different funnel points, top of funnel and optimizing how we're, found online, right? With like AI generated images. And then how are we optimizing this, specific touch point for like a chat whenever somebody comes in with a question? How are we optimizing this returning visitor? And I think really it's going to be much more of an orchestration across an individual human being that, we're able to then create very custom, tailored, personalized, proactive recommendations across their entire experience with our organization, right? I mean, I live and breathe email every day. That's what we do. And so my mind is thinking all the time about how much this is going to change the ways in which I've always thought about email marketing and, scheduling and optimizing our send times. Like that's going to be an old way of thinking about the ways in which we're deploying emails and the ways we deploy emails that are specific to our subscribers and our customers, right? It's going to be automatically recommending different scenarios, different products that are sent automatically at the right time that we know that they're going to engage with that particular product, right? And that's going to be in the hands of, small business owners, mid-market folks, not just like huge Google, right? To be able to deploy with that level of technology. That's going to be in the hands of all of us to be a lot more, impactful across the entire customer journey through just all of these data points that we're going to have. So basically, I think it's just going to be orchestrated. It's going to be super personal across for every individual customer that you have across all of your existing channels. These channels are going to always exist, right? Like I'm not scared that email is going to die, right? We're all going to still continue to need to receive things to our inboxes, but it's going to be so much more effective and timely and personalized. And we don't have to make guesses. Like how many times have I read these reports? Like when's the best time to send an email? Like that's a going to be a dumb question, right? There's no best time. Whenever is the right time for this particular human for when I'm, doom scrolling at 3 a.m. Like that'll be my new best time, but that's not going to come up in a report. So that's really what I believe it's going to be. It's just a automated orchestration that you don't have to manually set up and kind of arbitrarily make these guesses on, which is exciting.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'm thinking, as a mom and, let's say I'm buying clothes for my 1-year-old child, right? And the AI can do those calculations. So when, I'm buying clothes, a year from now, it'll recommend a bigger size, because the child's aged and the AI can figure that out. I think that would be interesting and, a time saver for customers. Kasim,
Anything to add?
what do you say?
I think the quantity of creative is going to go up. I hate to use the word exponentially because millennials have like destroyed that word, but it will actually be exponential. It used to be that you'd have like, we 10 videos or these 10 image assets and we'd split test them against each other and we'd go with that. And what's going to happen is we're operating off of hundreds of touch points. It takes hundreds of touch points to actually move. Everybody thinks it takes 7 because of a study done in the 1930s. It takes hundreds of touch points to move the needle, and the AI-driven mechanism is analyzing those touch points for you. And so if you think about it, you've got this machine where if you pour in creative, out will come decisions. And to Abby's point, it's the entire funnel divided by every human you'll ever engage with across
Yeah.
every timeline possible, and it'll be the AI deciding. So the thing that you'll need to do is to give it a lot to decide with. So massively more creative landing pages, offers, and you think to yourself like, oh my God, that's so intimidating. And so you think, well, I can use AI to help me create that. But I think what we're going to see on the horizon is instead of 10 ads, you're going to have 10,000. And you're going to go through an AI, and I've seen my business partner, Perry Belcher, did this. He created an AI-driven media mechanism that using Airtable and Midjourney was able to pump out a database full of images based off of rules. So it's like, here's every product in my catalog, here's every avatar in my catalog, ChatGPT, give me a custom definition of these avatars, and then take every person and avatar and give me 10 ads for each of them based off of where they are in the funnel. And that's one prompt, and boop, here's my 10,000 images. And here, ad networks, go figure out which of these images work for which people. So if you think to yourself, I have to create 10,000 images, it's impossible. But if you think, oh, I've got this magic box that does this for me, that'll be the paradigm that we have to approach. So I think it's just thinking in larger economies of scale.
Yeah.
I'm going to double tap
Yeah.
on something that you had said earlier today about white glove service. And where I see the next few years going is you're going to have different segments of populations, kind of like you do now. But you're going to more or less have your chatbot folks that will buy through a chatbot or work through a chatbot. And then you're going to have might be a mid-market or a mid-tier client. And then you're going to have your white glove folks that are going to pay a premium to still have access to a person to have that human touch at some point in the sales cycle. Is kind of how I see things kind of panning out. Kind of, you go into a Target, if you will. If I go into a Target, I'm finding the toilet paper on my own, or I'm finding the milk on my own, or the bread. There's a London Byerly's around here where people are constantly walking around and pointing out where all these different things are, or maybe it's Target to Williams Sonoma. You're getting a much different experience at a Williams Sonoma than you're getting at a Target, because then they're pointing out the features and benefits. So I could see AI, and not to say Target is AI, but kind of a self-serve journey of Target, and then the Williams Sonoma where they're pointing out different things. So I'm curious to see if we have a segmentation of the market and the white glove service as opposed to the self-serve AI service. It's just
Or,
a thought.
a Williams Sonoma bot that rolls through the store and points it out, and maybe it's a virtual store and not, a physical store. Yeah.
So let's advance to the next slide. Those are the questions that we had. And like I said, there are a few in, but not a thank you yet. Let's go to the questions and then come back to the thank you. I think those might be out of order, but that's okay. But a couple of questions that came in. So the question that we have is, considering the rapid advancement in AI and its potential impact on various industries, if you were to imagine an AI-powered innovation that could revolutionize our everyday lives in the next decade, what would it be? And how might it change the way we interact with technology and each other?
This is the greatest question anybody's ever asked.
Right.
Wow.
Can I go
What
first?
a question. Please do.
Yes, please.
Yeah, go
We
for
will
it.
take volunteers for this one. It's a great question from Razvan, if I'm pronouncing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think it's increased efficiency in supply chain. I think that if you look at the risks to every economic cycle, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them rest on supply chain. You think about like how hard it is to get oil somewhere, or perishable foods, or this microchip to this entity at this time. And supply chain risks are where margin is found. And so with AI managing that process, what you'll start to see is downward pressure on costs to a degree that, and this is where things get a little utopian, but we'll be able to provide things to people that we haven't been able to provide in the past. And so now you have tech-enabled countries and cultures that have never been tech-enabled before because they have access to things they've never been had access to before. So I think, and Sam Altman talks about this a lot, who I love, by the way. I think he's the right person in the right role, doing the right things for conscientious reasons. I think he's amazing. But the downside to AI we've talked about a little bit. The upside to AI is increased efficiency across every level of analysis that then puts us all in a position to do the things that are actually meaningful instead of the things that are rote and routine. And I know supply chain feels like a really weird thing to zero in on, but if you think about the global economy and how important supply chain is to everything and everybody, AI empowered supply chain, I think, has staggering implications. So that's going to be my answer if it's a good one.
A great answer. Does anybody else want to chime in?
I'm watching the advances in AI in medicine very closely. I mean, there seems to be a lot of them, and stuff with diagnostics. It'd be great to have something in my home that would, help me with diagnostics, especially if I had health problems. Oh, step into the diagnostic machine and we'll take your blood pressure and your temperature, and oh, your kidney function looks low. I mean, I think something like that, a home doctor would be amazing.
Yeah, that's an awesome one. I don't have anything mind blowing. I haven't given it that much specific thought outside of my existing world that I live in terms of like digital marketing and email, just because I have to create some level of separation so I can sleep at night. But in general, I think I like, what we're pointing at is like to have more time for things that are meaningful. So just this elimination of manual routine tasks that are no longer needed in our life anymore. And then what are we as humans on this planet, whether it comes from how we are contributing economically or just as humans that exist on this planet, what are we going to do with that additional time? And I think that's just what I'm excited and hopeful about, looking about how that will continue to shape the world that we're living in, whereas more and more of these routine tasks are no longer essential and like forced for us to do manually. And then what are we going to do with that time? That's what I'll be looking out for.
Well, looking at time, and I know the clock says 4 minutes left, but we actually started a little bit late, so we have 3 minutes left. So I want to give everybody 30 to 45 seconds and just share what excites you most about AI. Very open-ended question, but what excites you most about AI? And if somebody would like to volunteer, I'm happy to call on somebody.
I think the streamlining of processes. I mean, we've talked a lot about that today, right? We've talked about how it can streamline things and smooth out the journey, and in a lot of interactions, not just customer to bot or customer to web, but a lot of things in our personal lives, I think will be smoothed over with AI, and it will help us find new ways of doing things, and exactly what Abby said, to help us save time in our personal lives and be able to enjoy ourselves more.
Abby?
Yeah, I love it. More time to just enjoy, to actually be happy on this planet and live. But, for example, I needed to plan a trip for my mother to come to Europe, right? And I thought she needs an agenda, she needs a whole itinerary, and I was procrastinating, right? This was something easy now that I could just put into ChatGPT for how can, 6 Arkansans spend 7 days in Barcelona, right? Like I don't need to now spend 3 hours on a Saturday planning that, right? Even though I'm excited to go on this trip, of course. But it's just the things that used to cause me dread and procrastination are not a part of my life anymore. A blank cursor on a screen to write some, new blog post about, some, topic that we need to rank for on SEO. That's just not a part of my life anymore. And I think that's this really exciting, nice piece, that this dread, procrastination, these things that were bringing me down creatively are not a part of my life, because I no longer have to just stare at this blank screen or do this really kind of arduous task that doesn't really bring me joy. And I can do other things that do bring me joy, or that are more effective or more creative or more strategic, whether it's for my personal life or my professional life. So this is where, for the last year and a half or so, where this has been a part of my life, I see a reduction in the procrastination and an increase in my level to think strategically or simply enjoy my time personally. So this has definitely been the big enhancement for sure.
And Kasim, 30 seconds, and I apologize, we do have to wrap up. I want to be mindful of everyone's time.
I'm excited about the increased rate of discovery. I think AI is going to make everything faster. We're going to figure stuff out faster, lifetimes faster.
Got it. And a great way to end it. And thank you, Kasim. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Abby. This was a terrific conversation. Like I said, I could go on for hours on this topic, and hopefully able to in the future. Everybody that's still on the line, I know we have 5, 6 questions. If you didn't add your contact information to your question, please do, because we can send it out to the panelists after, send a follow-up, maybe even set up a phone call for those things. I also do have resources on the screen here for the different companies represented. LinkedIn's a super powerful tool as well, so feel free to add Kasim, Dawn, Abby, and myself on LinkedIn. Happy to follow up after. But thank you, panelists. This was incredibly fascinating. Every time I hear more about AI, I get excited. I think we're definitely, it's trending, but I don't think it's going anywhere by any means. So thank you for your time. Enjoy your the rest of your morning, your afternoon, your evening, and take care.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks so much.